The world's oldest brewery since 1040, and this is something we will always come back to while the whole presentation. And yeah, we're gonna directly into it. But the first thing is how to pronounce Weihenstephan. It's not just for English-speaking people, for a lot of people all over the world, the Weihenstephan pronounce it precisely. It's sometimes pretty difficult, and I can see that. So the easiest way I would say for English-speaking to see it as a Weihenstephan. Then you're very close to them, how it would be said in German. But of course we say it actually pretty quick, pretty fast, Weihenstephan. But what does it mean? It does mean something is consecrated to Saint Stephen. So Saint Stephen, a Catholic saint, and the founder of the monastery of Weihenstephan decided to consecrate the monastery of Weihenstephan, which was the first settling, to Saint Stephen. And Weihen means something is consecrated, and of course Stephan, Stephen, means that Weihenstephan is a consecrated place to Saint Stephen. Weihenstephan, Weihenstephaner, this is also a language thing in the German language, but we have something comparable in English too. Weihenstephan is the place, it's the brewery, it's the location, and Weihenstephaner, with the ER on the end, means something that comes from Weihenstephan, so like the beer. So it's the Weihenstephan brewery, but the beer is Weihenstephaner beer. It's same like New York and a New Yorker, you know? So this means that. Basically, also graduates from the university in Weihenstephan call themselves, I'm a Weihenstephaner. That means I'm someone who graduates there, who comes from the university in Weihenstephan, and this is the big difference. So when we are referring to the beer, it's always Weihenstephaner. When we're referring to the brewery, it's Weihenstephan. The history, as you can imagine, 1040, the history was founded. This is the origin where beer starts. And the Weihenstephan monastery, actually, that was the founding ground of the Weihenstephan brewery, is on a hill, a little bit 30 kilometers north of Munich city center. And it's actually, from there, you have a very good view to Munich, to the whole city of Munich, but also to the Bavarian and Austrian Alps. So on a good day, especially in fall and in winter, you really can see more than 250 kilometer wide range of the Northern Alps, and it's actually a very nice view from there. Weihenstephan, as the brewery, we already said it's 1040, but the monastery actually, so the monastery for itself, was founded in 725. Do Saint Corbinian, a French monk, a French priest, who got from the Pope, actually, the direct order and mission to go to Bavaria and do missionary work there. So try to convert the, Bavarians into good Catholic people. So the next step of our history was then actually, the 1040 as our foundation date. It is the official date where the brewery got the right to brew and sell the beer outside of the monastery limits. So we are thinking that the brothers already brewed beer before that date, just for their own use. Has different reasons, because the monastery were Benedictines, and Benedictines were known for making everything on their own. So there were other orders that has like different kind of approaches of the living of a monk, but the Benedictines, they had their mantra, as we would call it today. It was Latin and stands ora et labora. That means work and pray. And so the Benedictines did a lot of craft work. They did agriculture, they did make bread, they do dairy, and also they brewed. Actually, they built also their monastery more or less for themselves. They built their own furniture. So every Benedictine monk needs to learn a craft. And of course, Middle Ages in Europe, not the nicest place to be, but it makes it just nicer if you have beer. So we are assuming that they were brewing beer before that, because there's a document that is showing that in 768, they were brewing hops on the Weihenstephan hill. And we are assuming that they were using the hops for making beer, because it's the only conclusion we have what hops were used at that time. But the official date, and this is what marks a brewery, it's selling beer and not just making it for your own. I mean, if you're a home brewer and brew beer in your garage and you're inviting your neighbors and your buddies, then you're a home brewer and you mostly are very popular with your neighbors. when you're making good beer, but it not makes you a brewery, because it makes you a brewery when you sell the product. Well, the further ongoing history is, well, of course, we have a lot of gaps in putting it together. So at least what we know is in the next 500 years, 4 fires, 3 plagues, 2 famines, 1 earthquake was the minimum that happened to the brewery. Not mentioning all the wars that going on in Europe at that time. I mean, there was a phase where the 30-year war in the 16th century, and of course in that time the monastery was also affected by the war. Yeah? So it was robbed or even burned down or destroyed by armies that went by. So we know that over the years the Hungarians, the Austrians, the Swedish, the Prussians, all they were there and robbed or burnt or destroyed the monastery. Actually, as you can see from different pictures, especially the picture above, which is from the 16th century, the monastery was kind of big and very rich because of their much work they are doing and because of the agricultural fields they have. And so that's why a lot of, like armies, they were in war. So why did they attack the monasteries? Because they had food. Very simple. But the brewery rises like a phoenix, and that's the thing that the Bavarian monks, the stubbornness of Bavarian monks was the thing where they all built it again, the monastery and of course the brewery. Very important date, not just for us, but for the whole Bavarian brewing was 1516. Where the Duke of Bavaria was issuing the Reinheitsgebot, which is the so-called purity law, which marks the idea how Bavarian beer is made. Only barley, hops, and water, and they added in the early 19th, or in the late 19th, early 20th century, they added the yeast to the recipe. Because in the Middle Age, in 1516, nobody was knowing about yeast as something that you need for brewing. So this living microorganism that is converting the sugar to alcohol and CO2. So that's why it's in the original Reinheitsgebot not mentioned. In the adaptation, what is today, they of course added the yeast, because without yeast, no beer. And this was very important because this became like the main recipe for every brewery in Bavaria. And it's still today what you need to do when you brew beer in Bavaria. That means only those 4 raw materials, water, hops, malt, and yeast, are used. And this makes the Reinheitsgebot to the oldest food law in the world that is still acting today. So today, even it is in use for all of Germany. So in the 1920s, when the Republic of Germany was founded and Bavaria became part of it, they used that law from Bavaria of the Reinheitsgebot for all breweries in all Germany. In 1803, it was more or less in the middle of the Napoleon Wars in Europe. The monastery closed down due to a special right the King of Bavaria got, and the brewery was transferred from the ownership of the monastery to the ownership of the Bavarian royal government. And the brewery became the Royal Bavarian State Brewery Weihenstephan. And from 1803 to the 1920s, the brewery was under the command and under the rule of the royal government and continued brewing in that time. And actually it grew a lot in that time. So this was then the kickoff where the brewery became really, really big compared to the times as a monastery brewery, because the royal state government saw that they can earn a lot of money with beer. Later that changed that the brewery became the Bavarian State Brewery Weihenstephan after World War I and after the dissolving of the monarchy government in Bavaria, and when the Republic, or when the Republic State of Bavaria was founded, the brewery was transferred as from the royal just to Bavarian State Brewery Weihenstephan, and we got under the command of the Ministry of Science and Art. And this is what we are still today. That means we are a 100% state-owned company. Okay, also very important between 1803 and the 1920s is 1852, because in Weihenstephan, so 1803, not just the brewery got transferred, also the brewery or the whole monastery was dissolved. So the brothers had to leave the property. And of course, they had a huge monastery with a dairy farm, with stables, with cattle, with forests, with agriculture, and so on and so on. And this was then kind of more or less not used for nearly 4 or 5 decades. But in 1852, then the king decided to make out of that property and of that infrastructure an agricultural school to teach the people from the countryside agricultural techniques to get better harvest, to prevent, bad crops and hunger and whatever. So they decided to make that school in Weihenstephan because the infrastructure was there, and they just rebuilt some parts of the monastery to make classrooms and stuff like that. And in that school, in 1865, they also established a brewing course. And out of that brewing course, which became very successful, is today own school for brewing technology at Technical University Munich. And it's located in Weihenstephan and directly around the brewery. So on that hill, I already told you, all the buildings around the brewery are basically today laboratories, classrooms, and offices from Technical University School for Brewing. Key dates, especially for the United States. We had the first dates. In 1992, we started on a big point and continuously importing to the United States of America. Before that, we did it not on a regular basis and very rarely, that we maybe ship a container once or whatever. But in 1992, we really started doing it. In 2010, we had our first big collaboration here in the United States, and we was with Samuel Adams Boston Breweries. We developed together a special yeast. It was kind of a mix of a wheat beer and champagne yeast. And so we made also a champagne beer. So a beer that has higher alcohol, comparable to champagne, very high carbonation. And that's why also we put it in a champagne bottle with the sealing of a champagne. So it was kind of a beer-ish malt beverage that was a mix between champagne. And we specially developed the yeast strain for that. Was our first big collaboration. In 2011, a key date not just for the USA, but also for us as a brewery, very important, on the World Beer Awards, one of the most prestigious awards competitions for beer in the world. We won the overall category for our Weihenstephan Vitus as world's best beer. Even it's now 13 years ago, we're still very proud of it because it's not happening so often. Our second big collaboration we did in 2018 with Sierra Nevada from California, also craft beer pioneer here in the United States, and where we brewed a hoppy wheat beer. So we want to combine Bavarian style Hefe wheat beers with American craft hops ideas. The first time ever we actually used in our brewery non-Bavarian hops. So there we used 2 hop varieties from the United States, from Yakima Valley. And this made the beer actually very hoppy, kind of tropical fruits. It was a great beer, and it was a huge success, especially here in the United States. That beer actually we exported in over 25 countries worldwide. 2019, also a very important date, and I guess if we talk about that date in 10 years, we will see it as much more important as it today. We started importing our non-alcoholic wheat beer here to the United States. Non-alcoholic category is the only category that is growing worldwide in double digits. It's actually, when you see the German market, for us, also our third biggest style we are selling in Germany, Hefe, Original Helles, and then the non-alcoholic varieties. That's 13% of our beer sales is now non-alcoholic. So Germany is a little bit ahead when it comes to non-alcoholics. But you know how society is evolving and stuff like that, non-alcoholic beers and products getting more and more important. And that's why this date is very important also for us, that we brought our non-alcoholic Hefe here to the States. And it's very, very successful, I guess, Lauren. We are very happy also with the growth rates we have with that beer. So I guess it's becoming more and more a big thing. 2021, we brought our new Helles and our Hefe into cans to the US. And in 2023, I had a special project here in the Northeast. So in the New England area, we did a small local collaboration with Jack's Abbey Craft Brewing from Framingham, close to Boston. And there we made a kind of American-inspired fest beer and called it Fest of Both Worlds. And now 2024, we brought Braupakt back. So Braupakt is the label for doing international collaborations. And this time we did it with St. Bernardo's, a very successful and very famous Belgian brewery. And it's a Bavarian-inspired Belgian blonde ale. Our brewery's mission is actually 3 spots. Of course, as the world's oldest brewery and as owned by the state of Bavaria, history and tradition and keeping that heritage and that tradition alive is of course very important. That means brewing our beer at the same location where 1,300 years ago St. Corbinian founded the monastery. And this is very important. Next, of course, to using the purity law as our only kind of, or the only way of how we brew beer. And of course, tradition of Bavarian beer styles. But innovation is also very important. That means being traditional does not mean we skip implementing new technology or new knowledge to the brewery. So one of the examples is we work very closely with the university. In 1994, we were one of the first breweries in the world, actually the second brewery in the world, that were using a technology where we extract the alcohol out of a finished beer and then sell this as a non-alcoholic beer. This technology is actually right now the most used technology in the world for producing non-alcoholic beers, because this is the only technology where I can make 0.0 alcohol beers. Very traditional, but also very innovative and future-minded. And Bier Perfected, that means quality. The best marketing is always have a constant and good product. That simply is. It's the best sales argument next to many others, but the highest possible quality that we produce is very important. And actually that's also our core mission. Why is the state of Bavaria owning its own brewery? Not just to keep the heritage alive that with the brand of the world's oldest, and also to help university in science and teaching, but also to keep the brewery as kind of a lighthouse for Bavarian quality and Bavarian beer styles and how they are made and interpreted. And this is what we try to do. And this is also another part where we work together with the university to make that quality and to keep it on that high level. So actually we have an objective institution like the university who is doing our quality management. And once in a week, our brewmasters are at the regular tasting round. It's a round table of the Institute for Sensory Analysis, where they are tasting every week's production together with scientists from the universities. This means, so we always had actually some kind of experts looking over our shoulders if we are doing right and if we are doing that, how we should do it. We have no room for kind of acting a little bit careless, like, okay, maybe we need the beer. Like for me or for us in sales, especially in summer, you know, we would love to go to the brewmaster and say, hey, come on, we need that tank a little bit faster because the people need the beer, it's running out in the market. But our brewmasters don't do that. They say, well, if we don't have a tasting again, and then it comes up that, you know, our lager, for an example, it's a little bit too sweet because we do not have enough maturation time in the cellar. This will come up at some point, and then I need to explain our professor for brewing science that we skipped tank time, which is crucial for good German beers, because we needed the beer on the market faster. They will never do that. They will never pick up that discussion with a professor, because a professor doesn't care about sales, he cares about beer quality. And actually that's a very, very good situation for us from a brewing perspective, because we are not there to, or we don't have a chance to step outside our parameters. All you need to know is in and on the glass. So mostly everything I just told you is on a glass of Weihenstephan. So you see there the Bavarian coat of arms on the glass is showing that we are actually owned by the state of Bavaria. But actually we are the only Bavarian state-owned company that is allowed to wear the official Bavarian coat of arms as their company logo. Comparable, this would be if there would be a United States state brewery, they would wear maybe the president's logo or something like that as their company logo. But this is very important for us. Also on the logo or on the glass is this very small to see, but this is since 1040. So this is also showing our founding date as the world's oldest brewery nearly 1,000 years ago. Also the name Weihenstephan, very interesting, because this is not just showing the brand name, it's also showing a little bit the location where we are from. And this is also the name of the university there, or of the brewing school where we are cooperating with. Most other German breweries are named by its founder or mostly from the location. For an example, the brewery Eying or Eyinger beer is named after the town of Eying in Germany. You can also think maybe that Weihenstephan or Weihenstephaner beer is named after the location where it is. But actually, it's the other way around. So the location where the brewery is was the location where the monastery was, and it was the St. Stephen's monastery, so the Weihenstephan monastery. And actually, over the decades or centuries, the people called then the whole area where the monastery was just simply Weihenstephan. And so, actually, we are the only brewery where the location we are in got their name from us and not the brewery from the location. So this is maybe a little fun fact on that. The most important fact is actually what you will find in the glass, and this is what we call Bier Perfected. The basics of the 4 allowed raw materials in Bavarian brewing, our strict standards of quality. I just also shortly explained to you how strict and how tight this quality parameters are that we have. And all this together makes actually, in our opinion, very, very good Bavarian beer, and we try to keep the standard on a level where we are try to be the best or one of the best beer producers in Bavaria when it comes to Bavarian styles.